Hello everyone and welcome to yet another Impact interview with Sportskeeda Wrestling. Now today, it's a bit of an interesting one because we have a returning guest that we heard from pretty recently, but we've got them back for very good reason. It's my honour to introduce the new Impact World Champion, Eric Young. Congratulations first of all. How's it going, Eric?
Yeah, it's going great, man. It's good to be king. That's how the old saying goes, and it feels good, man. It feels really good.
Most definitely. I think that is the perfect quote that we could just end the interview right there. But I think I need to ask you a few more little things first. So yeah, the best place I think I can start off with, we mentioned it's only been a couple of weeks since I spoke to you last, and you mentioned a particular quote to me that stood out, and that was, you said, it's good to be part of something you believe in again. However, I think that needs flipped because it's maybe worth noting you're part of somewhere that believes in you again if you are the new Impact World Champion. How does that feel?
Yeah, that's very well said, man, and that's the truth. It is good to be part of something, but it's also, one hand scratches the other. It's good to be, received how I was and put in a position by Impact Wrestling and all the people that work there. They're putting their money where their mouth is. I mean, they said a lot of things, and there was a lot of hype online for a lot of stuff, and they're putting their money where their mouth is. And for me, I mean, it's such a good feeling to be appreciated and to be treated well and to be part of something that is truly special. I mean, Impact is a company that's growing during a global pandemic. Just take wrestling out of it. I'm just talking business-wise, period. There's not many businesses in the world right now, especially ones that, predominantly do crowd-based revenues that are growing. And Impact is growing and being, in a way, a flagship of that company, of that product. It feels really good. The responsibility is not lost on me, and I've always been a hard worker, but it's extra motivation, to go that extra bit and to always deliver the best possible effort every single time. It's so exciting, man. It's such a cool place to be right now.
Yeah, most definitely. And before we get into a little bit more specifically on Impact, I need to ask you one last thing, looking back a little bit. So another thing you mentioned was, when you were released from WWE, you felt a little bit of relief. Is that vindicated now that a few months later you're holding a World Championship?
Yeah, I mean, it is relief, and it's justification, and it's sadness, it's happiness. I mean, there's tons of things that being in the position that I'm in now, being, world champion for the second time, being, like I said, the flagship performer of Impact Wrestling, and there's a long list of guys that could be in my position, and I won't take it lightly. It's a responsibility that I take very, very seriously. I always have, but I can say justification is a big word for me right now. I never lost belief in myself, and if you're a person that believes that I was in the position that I was in, and I was released, and where I was in my career because of my ability, then you're confused, and you don't understand how things really work. I've never doubted myself. I've never doubted my ability, and it's just cool to be able to put those words into actions. Where I'm allowed to thrive. It's hard to describe, man. That's the best I can do. That's the best I can describe it.
Most definitely. That's, I think, something that I always say it, but the thing that comes across is that passion. So having you at the helm is incredible. But for me, the most exciting thing, we need to go to the actual title win itself. So of course, Eddie Edwards is the man you take the title from. We spoke a little bit about him last time. You spoke about how he's been the flag bearer, essentially. You guys are two guys that, when I've spoken to other people in Impact, the term locker room leader comes up a lot for both of you. What has the backstage reaction been like to you winning the championship?
Yeah, I think it's positive. I mean, I said this too, is like I said earlier, is if you're not in the business to be the world champion, to be the guy, then you're in it for the wrong reasons or you're a liar. Everyone wants what I have. And that's the way it should be. I mean, you should want those things. I went and worked elsewhere, and he was there, and he continued to be there. And his heart and his effort and his grit and determination. And there's a long list of guys. I mean, there's Sammy Callahan, people that aren't even there anymore. Tessa Blanchard, Cross, Brian Cage, John Morrison. There's a long list of people that should be thanked for keeping Impact afloat during a really rough time. My goal of where I am and being the world champion and being the flagship of the company is to move forward. We're not moving back anymore. The company had a bunch of buzz going into Slammiversary, and buzz is exciting. Creating buzz and creating interest, that's one thing, but delivering on that is another thing altogether. And I really feel like we've done that, and we've done it in the television shows since, and the special since. It's a very special locker room, and I'm happy to be part of it. And anybody that wants help, I'm not a rah-rah guy. I'm not gonna stand there and give lectures and tell people what they should do and shouldn't do. In the end, pro wrestling is art, and it's subjective, and you have to do what you believe. As long as you believe that that's the best for you and best for the company, I'm never going to tell you to not do it. I'm going to suggest things, and you can tell me I'm wrong if you want and try to prove me wrong, because I can tell you that proving people wrong is a fun thing to do.
Most definitely, and there's a little thing there you said that was really interesting that leads on to my next question. You were just rhyming off names of people that have held the championship you now hold. Now that's a good lineage right there, but if we go back to April, there's a little something that came out that I'm going to say I personally disagreed with, and I think a lot of people in Impact might have as well. PWI, who have recently put out their PWI 500, have said that they recognised certain world championships as quote-unquote legitimate world titles. The Impact World Championship wasn't on that. Do you have any comment on that at all?
Yeah, that's their prerogative. It's like if you watch CNN or you watch Fox News, that's their narrative. That's one source. And I think if you ask any legitimate pro wrestling fan, they'll tell you that that's silly. It's a TV product. It's on every week. We're viewed in homes all over the world. There's 30 to 100 people making a full-time living at Impact Wrestling, and it's the only company that's growing. So for them to not view it as a world title is a mistake. And that's their mistake to make, and if that's how they view it, then that's how they view it. But in the end, PWI is its own thing. As a person that was as a kid and as a teenager had a subscription to it, I enjoy it. I've always enjoyed it. And there's a lot of talented people that work there, and it's great for the wrestling industry. But for them to not recognize Impact as having a legitimate world title is nonsense. It's complete nonsense, and it should be corrected.
Yeah, I completely agree on that, and I really hope it is. I hope it is in the future. From that, again, you've kind of mentioned something that I wanted to ask there. So, we mentioned last time that you're on an exclusive Impact Wrestling contract, but now that you're champion, I want to ask, would Eric Young be open to defending that title outside of Impact?
Yeah, I'm open to it. As a company, it's something that we would have to talk about for sure. Obviously, they're always looking for partnerships and to grow Impact as a brand and to grow it as a television product. And anywhere they want that title to be represented, I'm ready to represent this company. I feel I've earned that right. I feel I'm the right person to do it, and I would relish in an opportunity to defend it against everyone. It's exciting. That's an exciting thought to be in other countries, work for other promotions and whatever. But that's up to management with that kind of thing. And I trust their judgment, man. I really do. I trust this place completely. Scott and his team are incredible, and they're going to do what's best for the product, and so am I.
Definitely, and I don't think, there's enough people in Impact that I think are there ready for you to compete against anyway that everyone would want to see. So definitely not to write off the fact that any title defence in Impact would be good, which we need to get onto. It seems like a certain Rich Swann might have a bone to pick with you in the future. Eddie Edwards has got a little claim for a rematch, you'd have to think. and you've previously mentioned that you want to work with people like Rhino and Ken Shamrock. I'm going to try not to sound like Goldberg when I say it, but who's next for Eric Young?
Yeah, I mean, for me, Eddie is obviously in line for a rematch. I mean, this is was something that he earned. It's something that I took from him. And anytime I get a chance to share a ring with someone like Eddie Edwards, sign me up all day long. You know, I'm really looking forward to the challenge of working with Eddie, the challenge of working with Rich. Like, these are two dream opponents as far as pro wrestling goes. Obviously, two different kind of performers, two different kind of athletes, but there's two really cool stories there. And for me, stories is what drives wrestling, what makes people interested in wrestling, and what makes pro wrestling good is the stories. And those are two really cool stories. And the cool part of, at the end of that story, is this awesome opportunity to work with another world-class talent. And, you know, what else can a person ask more than that? I'm involved in a really cool story, in a really high-profile angle, and at the end of it, I get to lock horns with two guys that are absolutely gifted performers. Eddie Edwards, Rich Swann, whether it's Moose, Rhino, Shamrock, you know, Austin, Trey, Sammy Callahan, RVD, like, the list goes on and on, man. You know, I'd love to work with Gallows and Anderson. I mean, these are guys that we haven't worked together much. So, you know, doing a singles thing with Carl Anderson would be awesome. I mean, so there's lots of options, and that's super exciting. It's really cool to be in this position.
Most definitely. That was when I interviewed the Good Brothers. Both of them said they wanted World Championship shots, so that definitely leads in there. You know,
they know where to find me.
Most definitely. So another thing we mentioned last time we spoke is how you felt like it had been about 3 or 4 years since you actually last wrestled. I mean, we know that you've not missed a step because we've seen you for the past month and a bit in Impact. You know, Eddie Edwards was doing his open challenge. Is that something you'd be open to doing at all, or is that something that you'd rather not do?
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, for me, that's a compelling story. But I feel, you know, Eric Young, it's a different story. I mean, I'm not, you know, the character isn't the fighting champion. You know, Eric Young wants power. He wants to be in control, and the fastest and easiest way to do that as an on-screen performer is to be world champion. You know, now he's world champion. Now his whole thing is hold on to it, but for dear life. Because the reality is the same as when Eddie had it. The same with any champion is you got a bullseye on your back. You know, and I'm not afraid of any challenge on the roster. You know, I'm open to all of it, but I feel it's a very different story from Eddie Edwards, the fighting champion, you know, defending it every week, to who Eric Young is. Eric Young is going to pick his spots. He's going to make the most out of his opportunities, and he's going to set himself up for success. He wants to be up one step ahead of everybody.
Yeah, definitely, and that makes a lot of sense. 2 final questions. So, the first one, you mentioned their power. I'm going to adapt that word a little bit, but I feel like, you know, a lot of people might have forgot just how good Eric Young is in terms of promos. You know, we mentioned the in-ring stuff, but we've seen on Impact, man, Eric Young can cut a promo. 1, have you been working on those? And 2, how much creative input do you have when you're cutting a promo?
Yeah, I mean, it's not, I don't know if it's something that I work on now. I feel like back in the day, you know, when I was first starting, because you've never done that, I mean, in your life, you know, as a young man, you know, you're never in a position. I played sports my whole life. You don't grab the microphone and tell everybody how tough you are. That's not part of sport, you know, but it is a massive part of pro wrestling. And like I was saying earlier, a promo is another tool. You know, it's another building block to the story. And it's something I've always prided myself on, something I've always worked at and wanted to be good at, because I feel it's one of the most important pieces of pro wrestling, especially in storytelling, is good promo. And whether that's going back and forth with somebody, or it's, you know, just a piece where I'm, you know, in a video like you saw the BMG hype up video, like that's a that's a tool. I mean, that's creating another layer to my character, another layer to my story. So it's something that I've always loved, something I've always respected people that were really good at it before me, and I tried to learn from. And as far as, creative, like, it's very open here, you know what I mean? Like, we're working as a team, so they're never going to say, here's your script, memorize it, and then, because they don't know how to talk for me, because they're not me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, I understand that when they're making formats and stuff, there has to be bullet points, or there has to be something for me to go off of. But at Impact, it's never written down where it's like, this is what you're supposed to say. Because the truth is, and I say this to anybody, is you have to believe what you're saying, or people see through it. It becomes transparent. And being good at learning promos and rehearsing it is a skill too, but making it your own is what's important. So that's part of the process here. It's definitely a group effort. And I mean, as a person that's been experienced and been on TV for 16 years, they trust me. I mean, I'm not in this position if they don't trust me. They trust me to do what's right and to do what's best for the story and for the company and for myself. So, and that's worth money in its own right there, I can tell you.
Most definitely. I've got one final question. Last time we spoke, you mentioned, you said specifically, I'm not patting myself on the back for where Impact is, but what I'm saying is, I'll be a big part of where it's going. Now, I think we know that's true anyway, because you're holding the World Championship. You mentioned it there, that incredible Bound for Glory vignette that's, just all Eric Young and absolutely incredible. The real Eric Young coming through. Final question, what can we expect, both at Bound for Glory and beyond from Eric Young in Impact Wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said before, I plan on being a big part, if not the biggest part of this company. That will show in the product, that will show in my effort, that will show online, it'll show in interviews like the one I'm doing with you. I take this very seriously. This is my life. This is my livelihood. Impact is allowing me to continue to live this dream life, and that's not lost on me. It's important to me. I mean, like, pro wrestling is my first love. I'm going to love it to the day I die. And for me, the big thing, money is great and fame is great and all that stuff, but I never got into wrestling for any of that. I got into it because I love wrestling, and I just hope to leave wrestling and leave Impact a better place than when I got there. I'm going to do everything in my power to make this company grow, and Bound for Glory is going to be no different. My goal is to have even more buzz, even more interest, and even more buzz in Bound for Glory than there was for Slammiversary. The bar's been set. I mean, it's hot, but it's something that everyone here, most importantly me, because you're talking to me, that's what's important, is growing the company and in turn growing my career.
Man, I don't think you'll find anyone willing to disagree with you on that one. Thank you so much, Eric. I can't wait to see you going forward in Impact Wrestling as Impact World Champion. Thanks again for your time.
Appreciate it.